Eve Duncan has been a part of my life for a number of years. How many years? I can't keep track. Maybe some of you guys can. But she first started in Face of Deception, which was supposed to be a standalone book. And I got to the end of the book, and there were a lot of questions unanswered, at least for me. And I thought, okay, just one more book. So then I wrote Killing Game. And Killing Game was very satisfactory. I was very involved with Eve. But then there was Joe Quinn, and Joe Quinn was so interesting. And so were the people all around Eve. And I thought, okay, just one more book. And then it was one more book, and one more book, and it went on, and on, and on. As many of you know, Eve Duncan had an illegitimate child when she was just a teenager, and her name was Bonnie. And Bonnie disappeared when she was 7 years old. And it was assumed that it was a serial killer who kidnapped and killed her. So Eve's great quest all of these years was to find the killer of her daughter and also the body of her daughter so she could bring her daughter home. It became an obsession with her. So when Eve went back to school after her daughter was missing, she studied forensic sculpting. She became an expert on finding the other children who were the lost ones that she could help to bring home. And she hoped in that way that perhaps it would be some kind of resolution to her own pain. One of the most frequent questions that came up was, what happened to Bonnie Duncan? You're leaving us hanging. What happened to Eve in her youth, and what happened to Bonnie Duncan? And every time I'd go to an autographing, I'd get it. They'd say, okay, it was almost always one question. When is Eve going to find Bonnie? What happened to Bonnie? What happened to Eve during those years when she had Bonnie? And so my answer was always, okay, I don't know when Bonnie's going to be found. And she hasn't told me yet. And of course everybody laughs and said, oh, what a ditz she is. But it was the truth. The only thing I could say was, Bonnie will be found when she wants to be found. And during the last year, I kept thinking about Bonnie and thinking about Eve. And I realized it was really time. It was time for me to realize exactly what Eve went through when she had Bonnie, what happened to Bonnie, and let the story not end, but take a new turn. And so I started Eve. And I had no idea what I was going to do with Eve. I didn't know what she was like when she was young. I knew she was independent. I knew she'd be strong. But I thought to myself, now, why would an independent, strong woman like Eve get herself in a mess, have an illegitimate baby that could really ruin her life and spoil all her plans? Why would she do that? So then I had to get to know young Eve at 16. And then I had to get to know the man who was Bonnie's father. And that was very exciting. Just as his relationship to Eve was exciting, but also the danger to Bonnie was exciting. While I was writing Eve, I suddenly began to realize that this book was not going to do it. The story was too big and complex. There were too many characters that I had to settle, to find solace for the killing of Bonnie Duncan. So I thought, all right, one book won't do it. How about 2? And then I realized, no, it has to be 3, because the first book has to be Eve, and from her point of view and her history. And the second book has to be about Joe Quinn, who is Eve's lover and intimately involved with Bonnie also, as well as Eve. So the second one would be Quinn. And the third would be Bonnie. And that one I knew was going to kill me. But it had to be done. Eve is an exciting book. It's a thrilling book. It has chills and all the required elements, but that doesn't mean a thing, because it's also a very emotional book. Eve, like the rest of the trilogy, was just a part of my heart and a part of my year, and a part of my past as it was a part of her past. It's a book that I feel deeply about, that I've wanted to know for years exactly what happened to her. Eve has a wonderful, wonderful bunch of people around her. She's got Joe, and she's got her adoptive daughter Jane. She has a new friend in her life called Catherine Ling. There are so many people who love her and help her, and yet for years and years she's been torn apart by her search for Bonnie. And I wanted her to find Bonnie. I wanted her to find out what happened to Bonnie, so that she could be at peace with the people around her too. I wanted to help her so much because she's part of my life. As I said, when we're delving back into Eve's past, Eve remembers, and Eve finds that there is somebody in that past that could be the man she's been searching for all these years. So she's frightened, she's scared, and she's determined. And she goes forward to find her daughter's killer.